Part 16. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 151. Seeing the two servants fighting fiercely, Yu was speechless. So what kind of situation is this? I was already preparing to fight Ryder to the death, but Saber suddenly appeared and announced in a very domineering manner that she fell in love with him and wanted to protect him. Do you have such great charm? Can you make the famous King Arthur fall in love with you? Yu rubbed the tip of his nose in confusion. He obviously didn't do anything. At most, he just said a word for Saber at the banquet last night, right? Did she fall in love with him just because of such words? Saber's actions reminded Yu of himself. Didn't he fall in love with Reveria at first sight? But it's a little bit of a pity, I already had the awareness, but maybe I won't have the same awareness next time. As Yu murmured to himself, the blue color in his eyes slowly faded until they returned to their original dark color. It seemed that he felt the roar of an unwilling voice in his body, and then it fell completely silent. After that, Yu's body shook involuntarily, but he could barely stand still, and then he stepped back step by step. Now that Saber is fighting on his behalf, there is no need for him to stay on this battlefield anymore. Although it seemed despicable to do so, Yu was really worried about his wife's current condition. Feel sorry. Looking at the girl's resolute back, Yu said softly, and immediately left the inherent barrier through the gap in the king's army created by Saber. What a pity, I originally thought that after the King of Knights expressed his love, brother Yu would stay and fight alongside you. It seems that he doesn't fully trust you yet, Saber. Fighting side by side does not necessarily mean trust. Now that he hands everything to me, it is a great trust for me. Arturia smiled and laughed at Ryder's provocative words. Then the girl raised her holy sword high and challenged him. Okay, let's start our fight. Stop saying meaningless words to sow discord. Ha ha ha, are you provoking? I didn't expect that I would be accused like this one day. Indeed, words alone can no longer shake your heart. Saber, you will be an excellent opponent. Soldiers, today let the famous King of Knights see your bravery. Fight, fight, fight! The king's army issued a shocking declaration. There is no need to hesitate at all. They are a conquering army. As long as the king orders them to go, they will fight. Very good. The conqueror suppressed everyone's voices with a wave of his hand, and then spoke to Arturia opposite. King of Knights, this is an unfair battle, but I will not show any mercy to you, nor will I withdraw part of my army, because I and all my warriors are one, so this is a battle to bully the few. Do you dare to accept the war? The girl did not answer, but raised the sword of victory oath in her hand above her head. The king of conquerors, who had received Arturia's attitude, laughed heartily, and then waved his hand forward. Warriors, show your strength and conquer everything. Drink! The king's army immediately burst out with loud shouts and charged forward. It was a heroic war that could only be seen in ancient times, and it appeared again at this moment. The strong wind blew up and wrapped around Arturia's body. Before the soldiers at the front came close to Arturia, they were completely knocked away by the strong wind. The Wind King's iron hammer was like a sledgehammer, smashing a gap in the triangular charge group. Arturia remained silent, and rushed straight into the vast sea of people with a heroic gesture, holding the holy sword high. The brutal fighting began. It was definitely not a battle that could be seen in the real world. No, even in the era of constant killings, it was impossible to see such a heroic battle, right? The King of Conquerors and the King of Knights, two kings from different eras, one stands on the path of kingship that he firmly believes in, while the other puts his emotions on the line. The two of them do not give up at all, and do not have any hatred at all. They just aim at victory and for themselves. Certificate name. The King of Conquerors sat astride his war horse, his tall body like a pillar of heaven. He looked coldly at Saber, who was fighting in his army, and watched coldly as his soldiers were cut off easily, and their blood was sprinkled on the scorching heat. On the desert, there is no sadness or pity. It is their honor to die on the battlefield as soldiers, let alone die in the hands of the famous King of Knights. Even if they use their own bodies to delay the King of Knights from taking any action, this is something they can be proud of. The war was gradually coming to an end, and at Artoria's feet, mountains of blood and corpses piled up. Ryder silently watched this tragic scene, looking at the mountain of corpses and the girl's perseverance in the background. After all, I am still too weak to win. If the sword you used to break through my inherent barrier were swung head-on towards my army, most of my unparalleled army would be instantly dissipated, right? Ryder said this, urging the warhorse to move forward, and the remaining soldiers moved out of the way. This tragic battle did not last long and was only effective for 10 minutes. However, in these 10 minutes, the soldiers who died under Artoria's sword accounted for at least 10% of the entire king's army. This is a number that makes Ryder feel scary and terrifying. But in the end, he won. Although his magic power was almost exhausted and the inherent barrier was about to dissipate, Saber was at the end of her strength. "Stop talking nonsense, I haven't lost yet." Along with Artoria's roar, Ryder's inherent barrier trembled, and the whole world fell piece by piece like broken glass. Immediately, the two returned to the original Einsburn courtyard. Finally, Ryder's inherent barrier dissipated due to excessive consumption of magic power. But even so, just like Ryder said, Artoria has already lost. Because Ryder still has at least 30% of his combat power, and Artoria probably doesn't even have 10% left. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 152. In Einsburn's castle, Iris Veal lay quietly in the prepared magic circle. If it weren't for her pale complexion, the girl would have looked as if she was sleeping peacefully. Flandra was guarding Iris Veal, trying hard to suppress the rampant power in her body. But it's a pity that this kind of thing is really not what Flandra is good at. All she can do is maintain the status quo, so that Iris Veal's situation will not continue to be so bad. As for more, there was nothing she could do. Just when Fran was at a loss and didn't know what to do, the door to the room was pushed open and Yayu walked in. "Master, do you think you have defeated Ryder?" Flandra looked at Yayu in surprise, and the girl felt a little incredible. Ryder is undoubtedly a formidable opponent, and even Flandra is helpless against such a terrifying noble phantasm as the king's army. "No, Saber suddenly appeared at the critical moment and helped me, although I don't know what happened." Yayu explained this with a somewhat helpless expression. To this day, he still finds it a bit unbelievable why Artoria would place such heavy feelings on him inexplicably. Even at first, he thought it was some kind of trap designed by Emi Yakiritsugu. Yayu was not surprised that a man like that would do such a thing. But soon, Yayu denied the possibility of this, because Saber's eyes told him everything. He could feel the emotions conveyed by the girl, which were very similar to his own. Love at first sight only happens in fairy tales, but before I knew it, I had experienced it twice. Touching the tip of his nose, Yayu felt a little funny, but it was a pity that he might not be able to respond to the girl's emotions. Squatting down and looking tenderly at his wife in front of him, Yayu gently held her hand. "Nowadays, there are too many things that I carry on my body, and there is no way to carry more. As a heroic spirit, Saber is destined to meet him by chance. After the Holy Grail War is over, she will naturally return to where she belongs. Okay, I have activated the magic circle, so you don't have to suppress the power in Ellie's body." As Yayu spoke, he injected magic power into the magic circle under Iris Veal's body, and immediately a blue halo slowly began to flow along the aperture. Flandra nodded slightly and took back her power. After transmitting magic power at a high frequency for a long time, her magic power became somewhat unbearable. Magic power is the only way for heroic spirits to maintain their existence in this world. Once the magic power is excessively consumed, it will not only reduce their combat effectiveness, but they will also be unable to maintain their physical form. Let's go out. I don't know why Saber helped me, but at least as a comrade, I can't watch her face the enemy alone. As Yayu said this, he led Flandra out of the castle hall, and in the atrium, the battle was coming to an end. Waver watched everything that happened in front of him silently. Although he did not see Saber's situation when she faced Ryder's thousands of troops alone, he also knew what a tragic scene it was. From the girl's bloodstained and broken armor, it seems that she can still feel the murderous aura coming towards her face. In less than 10 minutes, how many people did this girl kill? Thinking of this, Weber's scalp became numb and he became unsteady. He is a very timid person. Although he stole the holy relics of his master Kenneth and participated in the Holy Grail War, Weber is still a very timid person in his heart. It was precisely because of his cowardice that he was so frightened that he couldn't speak at all by Kenneth's few threats. Because of his cowardice, he kept crying and fussing over Ryder's wanton behavior. His calves were shaking and his eyelids were twitching. Weber really wanted to escape from here, escape from Fuyuki City. Let the Holy Grail War go to hell, let this crazy game go to hell. But he didn't do this, because the person standing in front of him now was his servant. He was fighting for himself, fighting to help him win the Holy Grail and dedicate the victory to himself. Ryder, in the name of the command seal, restore all the magic power, then help me remove Saber's head and dedicate victory to me. So, the young man raised his palms high and shouted loudly. Without hesitation, he used the second command spell without confusion. The power of the command spell is incredible and unimaginable. For vague and general orders, such as winning the Holy Grail War or defeating an opponent, it may not be fully effective. But this kind of designated order can absolutely be fully executed. For example, the command to restore magic power. After Weber gave such an order, Ryder felt a powerful force injected into his body, because the huge magic power consumed by using the king's military force was replenished in an instant. Many come back. Although it has not returned to its heyday and it is impossible to use the king's military power again, Ryder's power has also returned to a level of 7 or 88. It's really embarrassing, but you did a great job. Only in this way can you be a qualified master, a master who fights side by side with your servant. Ryder said so proudly, raised his head and looked at Saber standing in front of him with a sword. It's such a pity, Saber. Maybe I should call you Arturia. After losing your master and losing the support of your strongest supporter, you cannot be the opponent of me and my little master after all. Just witness the bond between me and master. Then, please leave here. I will accept the head of the famous king of knights without mercy. As soon as he finished speaking, Ryder raised his sword high and slashed at Saber. And Saber still stood there in that posture. It was obvious that the girl, who was at the end of her strength, had no power to resist, and could only watch as Ryder's knife swung down towards her head. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 153. Buzzing. Before the sword edge made contact, violent vacuum fluctuations were already emitting in the air, which showed how powerful Ryder's attack was. This is an attack launched with the consciousness of absolutely killing the opponent. It is a fatal blow. But nothing happened. Ryder's swords did not collide in the end, and his attack stopped. Between them, another force blocked Ryder's attack. It happened in an instant, and Ryder didn't even have time to react. Then the next second, accompanied by the biting wind, a breath of death suddenly approached Ryder's body. The sound of broken limbs was particularly pleasant in the night, mixed with the girl's excited laughter. Ryder took several steps back with a very ugly face, and the inner side of his cloak was completely soaked in blood. The enemy Ryder was supposed to face tonight was standing in front of him. The immature girl had a crazy smile on her face and spread her hands towards Ryder, who looked ugly. It seems that the blood of heroic spirits is also red, but the taste is not very good, far worse than the master's. Tisk, sure enough, your rank is Berserker. You can really feel this crazy energy. Ryder smiled helplessly and shook his head without any fear. Although the night is already deep, the target tonight is you. Let us finish this delayed battle properly. Waving his sleeves, Ryder didn't care about the injury on his arm. He looked at Flandra standing in front of him and spoke with fighting spirit. Fight, in your current state. Flandra looked at Ryder standing in front of her with disdain. Although courage was commendable, at some point this was not courage, but just reckless stupidity. If he had deployed the king's army in his heyday, Ryder would indeed have given Flandra a headache. But now, Ryder, who has already used the king's army and is only about 7 or 88 in strength, has not been affected by Flandra at all. Take it seriously. So what? As a king, how can I retreat on the battlefield? Even if all my soldiers fight to death in front of me, I will go forward without fear and continue to fight. Ryder said this, raised the sword in his hand with his other intact arm, and immediately charged towards Flandra. Although such a charge was courageous, it was like a death charge with no hope in sight. Really, but don't forget, I am Berserker. It is undoubtedly a very stupid thing to fight Berserker head-on. As the price of losing one's mind, Berserker has almost the most powerful combat power among the 7 major classes. The madness with which Berserker fights is difficult for anyone to compete with. In every Holy Grail war, Berserker is the opponent that the masters of their respective factions least want to provoke. Because Berserker is a complete lunatic, provoking such an opponent will not do him any good. Although the Holy Grail War is said to be a battle between 7 masters, the mutual use and being used of each other is also a very important part. It is normal for multiple masters to form alliances and jointly deal with more powerful masters and servants. But the uncertainty of Berserker is really unpopular. If you form an alliance with him, you never know when you will be stabbed in the back. The moment Flandra loudly announced that she was a Berserker, the smile on the girl's face instantly distorted. She raised one hand high, pointed it in Ryder's direction and squeezed it tightly. Ryder's whole body stiffened while he was running, and soon a large mouthful of blood spurted out, and he fell down in a panic. If he hadn't used the sword in his hand to support the ground in time, Ryder would have fallen directly to the ground. Ha, ha ha, it's really outrageous. As a king, I would actually lose my temper like this. Fortunately, my soldiers didn't see it, otherwise I would be very embarrassed. At this time, Ryder can still say this in a joking tone. This magnanimity alone is enough to make people admire him. On the other side, Yayu was hugging Saber, who was covered in blood. The girl seemed to have lost consciousness due to exhaustion and fell limply into Yayu's arms. The blood and wounds on the girl's body were heartbreaking to look at, and Yayu couldn't help but feel extra pity and guilt for her. By this time, the doubts and suspicions in Yayu's heart had completely disappeared. He was completely sure that the girl was fighting for him and was fighting as the girl Artoria in love. Fran, don't show mercy, let Ryder withdraw tonight. Holding Saber and raising his head, Yayu stared at Ryder expressionlessly, and said similar words to Ryder not long ago, but now the target of these words became Ryder himself. As you wish, my master. With a coquettish smile on her lips, Flandra raised her hand towards Ryder again. The slender little hands were like summoners from hell, which made Ryder's hair stand on end. He had no idea or understanding of the other party's fighting style, yet he suffered such serious injuries just by stretching out his hand. From almost tearing off her entire arm at the beginning, to just destroying her heart, All the girl did was stand there and move her palms, which gave Ryder a very headache. It's obvious that Berserker uses power to crush his opponents, but when it comes to fighting, he uses this kind of magic like an unpredictable method. Ah, that's totally unfair. At least let me know what the moves you used are. You're completely confused now. Ryder said so depressedly, but Flandra had no intention of paying attention to him. The girl's palms against Ryder tightened again, and Ryder, whose face was on one side, jumped away suddenly, as if trying to avoid Fran's attack, but unfortunately it was all in vain. While his body was still in mid-air, a blood arrow shot out from Ryder's heart, causing the rugged man to fall to the ground and never get up again. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 154. There are only a few servants who can fight Berserker head-on and not fall behind. Berserker's cursed, violent power can destroy everything with ease. If he was simply completely suppressed by Flandra's power, Ryder might feel a little better, but the girl beat him to pieces with a power that he couldn't understand, which made Ryder a little depressed. So, is this vampire magic? It's really unpredictable. Although his heart was almost fatally damaged, Ryder still stood up unsteadily. He looked at Flandra standing in front of him and showed a helpless smile. Just take it as such, I don't seem to have any obligation to explain to the enemy. Flandra said this and raised her hands again. Let me think about it. Such a powerful noble phantasm must have certain limitations, otherwise it would be too invincible. Originally, I thought it would be enough to leave your sight, but it doesn't seem to be the case. In this way. Ryder said this, and this big man with no scheming expression actually showed a thoughtful and confused expression on his face. Ryder has always given people the impression that he fights carelessly and informally. It is really hard to imagine that he would think and look for breakthroughs during the battle. It seems that you still have some brains, which is worthy of praise, but what did you see, and even if you saw something, what can you do? Listening to Ryder's words, Flandra smiled disdainfully. The girl slowly raised her palm, her eyes full of contempt. You can't say that. After all, I am also a king. Don't treat me like a fool. As Ryder said this, his face turned ugly again, because Flandra launched another attack without giving him any time to react. Ugh. Different from every time in the past, this time Ryder let out an angry roar like a beast, and immediately huge magic waves were released from his body. Flandra was also slightly stunned, and the movements of her hands were stagnant for a moment, and then nothing happened. I see, I finally figured out your little trick. Seeing Flandra's surprised look, Ryder smiled proudly. He covered his chest and raised his head, staring at Flandra's palm. I've been wondering how this powerful noble phantasm works. No matter how you look at it, this noble phantasm that seems to cause huge damage to the opponent with just a thought is really too powerful. Ryder said this, looking at Flandra, who looked not very pretty, and showed a somewhat proud smile. Then I saw the movement of your palms. You didn't do it to scare people or increase your momentum. It was simply because you couldn't hurt me if you didn't do it. This is your trick, Berserker. I have already seen through it all. There is nothing magical about it, it's just a way to grasp other people's weaknesses and attack them at will. So what? Do you still have the strength to resist me like this? Flandra said so disdainfully, slightly surprised that Ryder could see through her attack method, but she didn't care at all. Even if you see through it, so what? Seeing through it doesn't mean that Ryder has a way to deal with it. He is still like a living target and is at the mercy of others. Although it has been severely weakened, Flandra's Eye of Destruction is still an extremely powerful noble phantasm in this world. Ha, now that you know this is just a normal attack, just bear it. How is it possible to not get hurt or bleed during the battle? As Ryder said this, he raised the weapon in his hand and once again launched a tragic charge like Flandra's death. Waver, who was standing behind him and watching all this, couldn't help but raise his hands and spoke again to use the last command. Curse. Using the command seal to issue a command, Rider, you must defeat the enemy in front of you, you must win the Holy Grail, and you must conquer the world. The last command spell on the back of his hand released his magic power, and then disappeared in a whirlwind. As a magician, Weber may never have the opportunity to use such huge magic power in this life. However, even so, he still felt from the bottom of his heart that this was the happiest act in his life. No regrets whatsoever. As compensation for losing everything, that was enough. Weber looked down at his hands, and the contract certificate engraved on his hands had disappeared without a trace. Idiot, it's hard to come true if you make so many random wishes. Although he blamed his master, the Conqueror King was trembling with joy, roaring, and galloping forward. The torn wounds were torn one after another, and the sad bloody flowers bloomed one after another from the body of the conquering king, continuously and mercilessly ravaging every inch of his skin. But this pain is nothing compared to the pleasure of running. I don't want to fall here, I don't want to fall tonight. Ahead is the other side of the journey, and the end he dreams of is standing in front of him after crossing so many hills and crossing so many rivers. The end point is now in sight. Then just step over it. Step over that enemy. One step, another. As long as he keeps repeating this process, the tip of his sword will be able to touch the unreachable figure in front of him. In the end, the stinging pain came from the heart, but instead of being torn or squeezed, it was penetrated by a sword. A scorching sword that evaporated all the blood in an instant, a flaming magic sword that exuded an unparalleled aura of violence and destruction. It's such a pity, if I could still expand the king's army, I might not have ended up like this. Ryder said this with a self-deprecating smile. Ah, it's true, that powerful noble phantasm is really difficult to deal with. Flandre nodded slightly. But it was also an extremely enjoyable battle, fighting two kings in a row, ha ha ha. In the end, Ryder's arrogance remained unabated, and he slowly disappeared while laughing like this. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 155. In terms of time, this battle is really not that long. From the moment Flandre and Yayu walked out together to the time the fight broke out between the two, it was over in less than a few minutes. But for Weber, who had all this imprinted on his eyes, this heavy and long time was comparable to his entire life. It's unforgettable. No matter how much he deceives himself, he will never forget that scene. The scene that happened in front of him in just a few minutes has become a part of his soul and can never be separated. Weber was left alone and motionless where he had been dropped. Although he knew in his heart that he must move, it seemed that if his body moved, he would definitely lose strength and fall to his knees. However, you must not touch your knees to the ground now. Absolutely not. Flandre stared at Weber with cruel blood-colored eyes, and slowly came closer. Along with the blood and killing, the crazy blood in the girl's body became active again. Although the powerful power of the Holy Grail and the rules of this world tightly restricted the girl's madness, they did not completely solve it. You must know that the vampire girl named Flandre was locked in the basement by her sister for hundreds of years because she could not control her power. This is the consequence of the original power of vampires flowing in the blood. Even the Holy Grail can only temporarily suppress it. The murderous intention carried by the girl made Weber's body tremble uncontrollably, but the boy still stood there firmly, looking directly at Flandre without fear. Even if Ryder has passed away, as his former master, Weber will never allow himself to bring shame to the other party. But soon, Yayu walked up from behind Flandre and gently hugged the girl who was almost out of control. Okay, it's okay, it's over. Yayu gently held the girl's waist and whispered softly in her ear. Slowly, the violent look on the girl's face gradually faded away and became peaceful. Let's go, or do you want to avenge Ryder? I won't. If I challenge you, I will die. Weber shook his head gently, and the strong young man showed a faint smile. And I don't need to avenge Ryder. He didn't die. He just returned to the Hall of Valor after this hardy battle. This is the Holy Grail War. I am extremely proud to be able to participate in this Holy Grail War as Ryder's master. And even if he loses, Ryder will lose with dignity and pride. Everything is over, the Holy Grail War between him and Ryder. What an honor it was to be able to fight alongside this great king and witness it to the end. Even in the years to come, Weber will always remember this honor and continue to follow Iskandar. Yes, Ryder is a respectable opponent. If Saber hadn't suddenly appeared, it's still unclear who would win tonight. Yeah, you also showed the same faint smile, while Weber bowed slightly and turned to leave, stepping out of Einsborn's courtyard alone. Looking at Weber's somewhat vicissitudes of life, yeah, you couldn't help but sigh slightly. He had to say that the young man was lucky. After participating in such a cruel war, I was able to escape unscathed in the end. If his opponent was not himself but anyone else, he would probably be a dead man by now, right? Now that Ryder has exited, and according to what Saber said, it seems that Lancer was also eliminated by Emi Yakiritsugu using despicable means, so the only remaining enemy servant is Archer. Of course, Emi Yakiritsugu is also a formidable enemy that cannot be ignored. Even if he loses his servant, it is impossible to estimate what this crazy man will do. Yeah, you thought this, and then felt a stinging pain in his neck. Turning his head, he saw that it was Flandra holding his neck and biting her hard. With a doting smile, it seemed that although the girl's desire to kill was suppressed, other desires were not suppressed. Forget it, just let her go, just suck a little blood. Although he thought so, Flandra's blood-sucking force was still a bit scary, making Yayu feel that the girl was going to eat him directly. Turning his head to look at Saber, who was still unconscious on the ground, Yayu couldn't help but feel a little headache. What should I do with her now? Take her back to be my helper, or... Instinctively, Yayu had a slight resistance to the previous point, and he couldn't explain what this strange idea was about. Maybe you feel uncomfortable using someone else simply like this? Use the girl's feelings for him to make her the sword in his hand. Master, are you feeling distressed? On the other side, Flandro, who had finished sucking the blood, was half snuggling in Yayu's arms, gently licking the wound on Yayu's neck, and saying this with a playful smile. Don't make trouble. Yayu couldn't help but said helplessly as Flandro was shaking all over. Well, Master is really weird. If it were someone else, he would be too happy, right? You got such a powerful servant for no reason, and he seems to like you very much. Master, do you think you're sorry for Sister Irisveal by doing this? There's no such thing as apologies between Aili and I. Maybe I owe her too much from the beginning. With a helpless smile, Yayu stepped forward, picked up the unconscious Saber, and walked towards the castle. I just don't want to use her. I will rely on my own hands to get the Holy Grail. The same goes for winning this war. I don't think, Fran, you want others to help you win, right? That's natural. That shiny, arrogant Street Lamp King must be defeated by me myself. The title Street Lamp King made Yayu couldn't help but laugh. The sky was already turning a faint fish-belly white, and the night's battle had truly come to an end. 5 days have passed since the Holy Grail War, and there are currently only 3 surviving servants, Saber, Berserker, and Archer. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 156. In the darkness sealed in the deep underground, it was lost in the abyss. What it dreamed of in its deep sleep were the countless unorganized and far-fetched prayers that were entrusted to it a long time ago. A beautiful world, a beautiful life, a flawless soul, because this desire is too strong, all other evils must be entrusted to one place. This is the desire of weak people. By answering that prayer, it once saved the world. There is no sin apart from me, there is no flaw apart from me, I am the only one to be hated, I am the only one to be detested. By doing that he saved the world and gave them peace. Therefore, it is not a saint who saves people and saves the world. There is no praise, no reverence, no singing, only contempt, only curse, only contempt. At some point, even the name he had when he was a human was taken away, and only the title of his way of existence remained, which eventually became a concept passed down from generation to generation. The infinite darkness sighing in the deepest part of the earth, it used to be a place where infinite possibilities were hidden. One day, it entered as a seed and took root. From that day on, it became the belly of a darkness that did not belong to anything, absorbing the endless magic while waiting for the fateful day to arrive. Then, it heard it, really heard it. Someone is calling, it doesn't matter if I have to bear all the evil in the world. If that can save the world, I will be willing to bear all the evil in the world. Look, someone is calling you, someone needs you, you are being called together with blessings, then, respond to him, accept him, let everything in this world. Endless magic is surging, and the darkness that covers everything is taking shape. It can come true, your wish can come true. It said so. Then, let all the evil in this world come true for you. Emi Yakiritsugu woke up from his sleep, the sword wound on his chest still aching faintly. Although it had been well bandaged, blood still overflowed through the gauze. After all, the sword of victory contract is not a mortal thing. It is an extremely powerful holy sword, and its properties are extremely restrained by the magic practiced by Emi Yakiritsugu. It can be said that such a weapon penetrated the body of Emi Yakiritsugu, who was just an ordinary person, and he was lucky not to directly kill him. Ah, that's right, Saber betrayed him, so he has to rely on himself to fight for the rest of the war. With this broken body, it doesn't matter what the price is, we must win this Holy Grail war, with more Holy Grails. Kiritsugu, are you awake? The movement in the room alerted Kuumya, who was guarding the door. The girl walked in and looked at Emi Yakiritsugu with concern as he stood up from the bed with difficulty. I'm fine. This little injury is nothing. The Matu family's magic is not for showing off. It's just a sword wound. Even if the body is torn to pieces, it doesn't matter. Relation. Seeing Emi Yakiritsugu's indifferent eyes, Kuumya couldn't help but tighten her palms. The girl wanted to say something, but in the end she chose silence. I have no room to look back, Mya. I can only keep going like this, until I reach the end of hell. Standing up from the bed, Emi Yakiritsugu lit up a cigarette out of habit, and immediately put on his black coat and planned to go out. But at this moment, Mya came closer from behind and immediately hugged Emi Yakiritsugu's body tightly. That doesn't matter, even if it's hell, as long as it's you, I'm willing to move forward with you. Emi Yakiritsugu said nothing to Mya's true feelings. The man just took a puff of cigarette silently, gently pushed away the body of the girl holding him, and then moved on. Kuumya didn't say anything else. The girl didn't complain at all, but just followed the urgent need to move forward without any regrets. From the moment Emi Yakiritsugu picked her up, the girl no longer lived for herself. Emi Yakiritsugu didn't know that Rider had withdrawn last night, while Toki Tozaka, who was well informed on the other side, felt that he had a complete chance of victory. Rider, the most threatening servant, has withdrawn. Now he is one step closer to his long-cherished wish. Tokiomi Tozaka was thinking like this, but he never expected that his last enemy would be a contestant from the Einsborn family, the man who adopted his daughter. And he also got help from Saber. Although Saber and Rider were both defeated in the battle last night, she was still a formidable enemy that could not be ignored. Of course, Tokiomi Tozaka firmly believes that he, who has the strongest trump card as the King of Heroes, will definitely win. As for now, it is time for his student Kotomine Kaire to leave Japan temporarily and stay away from the whirlpool of the Holy Grail War. Anyway, he had lost his servant, so Kotomine Kaire's departure and stay in Tosaka Tokiomi's eyes didn't seem to be important at all. At this time, in Tosaka's mansion, Tosaka Tokiomi was having final talks with his trusted disciples. The closer it gets to you leaving, the more reluctant I feel to leave. No matter what, I hope you can inherit your father Risei's legacy and continue to help my Tosaka family realize their long-cherished wish. Tokiomi Tozaka said. I'm so ashamed that I caused so much trouble to you, mentor. At the last moment Kaire raised his head and saw the sincere look in Tokiomi's eyes, and couldn't help but feel ashamed. Although I am very helpless and regretful, please withdraw from this war. Kaire Tokiomi Tozaka looked at Kotomine Kaire and said. Understood, my mentor Kotomine Kaire said. Tokiomi Tozaka nodded with satisfaction and said. You are a reassuring person. I want my daughter to learn more from you. After this Holy Grail War is over, Kaire, you can guide her as Rin's master. Tokiomi then took a letter that had been placed on the corner of the table and handed it to Kaire. Teacher, what is this? Although the writing is relatively simple, it can be regarded as something like a suicide note. Tokiomi said this with a helpless smile. In case, although the probability is very low, it is possible, if something unexpected happens to me. I am writing here to hand over the head of the Tosaka family to Rin, and you will be her guardian until she comes of age. As long as submit this letter to the clock tower and the association will naturally take care of the rest. This time, Kaire finally went beyond just being perfunctory with words, and seriously accepted the responsibilities entrusted to him by Tokiomi from the bottom of his heart. After all, Kaire is also a holy person. It is his duty to discharge honestly and firmly the responsibilities entrusted to him by others. Please leave it to me. Even if my disciple's abilities are limited, he will definitely do his best to shoulder the responsibility of taking care of your daughter. Thank you, Kaire. Too many things have happened in this war that are beyond his imagination. His plan is gradually no longer able to control the overall situation as before. However, Tokiomi Tosaka still wants to give it a try, so now he left everything to his most trusted disciples. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 157. Looking at the disciple in front of him, Tokitatsu Tozaka finally let out a long sigh of relief. The only one he worried about the most was Rin. Now that this worry had disappeared, all that was left was to block everything and have a good final battle. Even if it is 1 versus 2, Toki Tozaka believes that the King of Heroes will bring him victory. On the other hand, Kotomine Kaire put away the sealed letter on the table. Immediately, Kotomine Kaire's eyes turned to a wooden box placed on the table, with strange runes carved on it. There was no doubt that it was a magic spell. Haha, this is my personal gift to you, open it and take a look. Tokiomi Tozaka smiled. Kotomine Kaire opened the box, and inside was a beautifully decorated dagger. This is the Mercury Sword, Azoth. Tokiomi Tozaka paused and then said, it is made of ancestral gemstones. It can be used as a gift after being filled with magic power. Use this as you practice the Tozaka family's magic way. Certificate of Graduation from Traineeship. Kotomine Kaire held the Mercury Sword in his hand and looked at it carefully, and said, my disciple is not talented, but you treat me with such kindness that I don't know how to thank you, teacher. Tokiomi Tozaka waved his hand and said, I should be thanking you, Kotomine Kaire. In this way, I can face this final battle with peace of mind. Kotomine Kaire fiddled with the Mercury Sword in his hand, stretched out his hand to touch the sword's blade. He held the dagger in his hand and looked at it carefully, his eyes falling on the sharp blade of the dagger for a long time. Tokiomi Tozaka looked at the time and then said, "It's already so late. I'm really sorry to keep you here for so long. I hope I didn't delay your flight." Tokiomi Tozaka stood up and walked towards the door. Koto Mine Kairi also slowly stood up, holding the Mercury sword tightly in his hand, looking at Tozaka Tokiomi's back. A ferocious smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "No, you don't have to worry, teacher. Or is this inevitable, is this destiny? No matter how much you pray or hope, is it just to lead everything into the abyss of betrayal?" Kairi laughed loudly, more cheerfully than ever. "You don't have to worry, teacher, because I didn't book any air tickets from the beginning." After saying that, Koto Mine Kairi stabbed the short blade in his hand towards the defenseless back in front of him. The sword of Azoth, which was a proof of friendship and trust, passed through the gap in the ribs and pierced directly into Tokiomi's heart. As a battle-hardened agent, this strike was unmistakable. There was no murderous intention at all, and there was no warning at all. Perhaps even Tokiomi, who was stabbed, couldn't understand what the pain in his chest meant. Tokiomi staggered forward, and when he turned around, he only saw Kairi with a hearty smile and his hands stained with blood. But until the end, there was no look of understanding in Tokiomi's eyes, and he just fell to the carpet with a lifeless and confused expression. This magician must have stubbornly believed that his understanding was correct until the end, and refused to accept the real facts. A person who has always believed in the path he has chosen and moved forward without hesitation every time, until he fell into an endless abyss and still did not wake up. "Haha, master, you are just like my father. You didn't understand me until the last moment." The image of his father before his death reappeared in his mind, and he thought about how he was initially frightened and uneasy, then confused, and then he felt a vague sense of joy. It seemed that his father's death was, "I have been silently looking forward to it for a long time. It's a pity, I didn't kill my father with my own hands." Golden light spots suddenly appeared next to Tosaka Tokiomi's body, and Tosaka Tokiomi's servant, Archer, Gilgamesh, the Hero King, appeared in the room. "Humph, what a disappointing ending." There was a look of contempt in his red eyes. Archer tapped his former master's body with his toes, and smiled with a trace of disgust on his face. "I was still expecting him to come up with a counter-attack before he died. Look at his blank expression. He didn't realize his stupidity until the end." Koto Mine Kairi also showed disdain for Tokiomi Tosaka on his face, and said with a smile, "After all, we have arranged for a spiritual servant to be by his side. No wonder he is so careless." Hearing Kairi's sarcasm, Archer laughed loudly. "Have you learned to tease me so quickly? Your progress is worthy of praise. How about it, Kairi, has your unwillingness to be unable to kill your father with your own hands lessened? You really have no objections, right?" King of Heroes, Gilgamesh, Koto Mine Kairi stood up and looked at Jin Shining and said. Jin Shanshan smiled faintly and said, "As long as you don't bore me yet, otherwise, Kairi, you will be the one who will be asked this question." Although the other party's answer was very sharp, Kairi still nodded without showing any sign of wavering. Indeed, this guy is a dangerous character who cannot be entrusted with his life. This can be said to be a contract with the devil. A tyrannical and cruel servant who has neither benevolence nor loyalty, and is even difficult to judge the interests of others. But that's why it's just right for me. For Kairi, those guys who flaunted benevolence, justice, and morality in the past did not bring him real answers, but this heroic spirit who has no connection with benevolence, justice, and morality can become Kairi's target in future battles. Kairi opened his sleeves to reveal the command spell engraved on his wrist, and then chanted it majestically. "You are listening to my orders. My destiny is with your sword. You should respond to the call of the Holy Grail. If you are willing to obey this intention, then this will be the end. I swear here, Your sacrifice will be transformed into my flesh and blood, Koto mine Kaire, my new master. At this moment, the command seal on Koto mine Kaire's left arm emitted a strange red light. Alright, Kaire, let's get started. Your strategy will bring a perfect curtain to this comedy. As a reward, I will give you the Holy Grail. I have no objection, King of Heroes. Please enjoy it. Until I get a satisfactory answer, I will be willing to be a clown. The eyes of red pupils filled with joyful light and black pupils filled with emotion intertwined. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 158. It was already dawn, and today was the penultimate day of the Holy Grail War. Lancer and Rider had all exited the night before, and there were only 3 surviving servants left. Originally, Yayu was still worried about whether Archer would suddenly attack last night. If Archer really came suddenly, Yayu really didn't have the confidence to fight. Saber was seriously injured and unconscious. It would be really difficult for Flandra and herself to compete with the strongest golden heroic spirit. Maybe it's not that they don't have the strength to fight, but besides Saber, Iris Veil also needs Yayu to worry about. Perhaps Archer is the famous hero king, but he gives Yayu a completely different feeling from the other 2 kings. The hostility in that man's eyes and the violent and murderous aura he exuded all the time made Yayu deeply unhappy. Rider can only be regarded as a militaristic overlord at best, but Archer is a real tyrant. A tyrant who will do any cruel thing according to his own preferences without making anyone feel strange. To some extent, this kind of enemy is as troublesome as Emi Yakiritsugu, or more troublesome than Emi Yakiritsugu. Emi Yakiritsugu is at least a true villain who lets you know that he is despicable and that you have to guard against him. As for Archer, he is a completely unpredictable guy. You say that he is the oldest heroic king, and should have the magnanimity and self-restraint of a king, but he is a contented bastard who shamelessly utters filthy words. He would get angry and furious over the smallest things. Such a guy really couldn't make Yayu favor him at all. If it was said that Yayu admired and respected Rider, but for Archer, Yayu had no such feeling at all. Although the other party was a king, Yayu could not see the slightest bearing that a king should have in the other party. Irritated, irritable, and full of filth, Yayu could not imagine what a country ruled by such a king would look like. Some dazzling sunlight shone on Yayu's face, and the man who just walked out of the hall blinked tiredly. Because he was worried about Ichir's surprise attack, Yayu stayed up all night with his wife. By daybreak, he was almost unable to hold on anymore. After all, his body still belonged to a human being. Not only had he not gotten a good rest for several nights in a row, but he had also been sucked too much blood by Flandra. He would be so weak. The situation is not that surprising. Master, are you okay? Flandal, who also hadn't slept all night, came over and gently supported Yayu's body, which looked a little shaky. It's okay, I'm just a little tired. Shaking his head gently, Yayu rubbed his temples and spoke slowly. How is Saber? Are you awake? Not yet. I don't know why her injuries haven't recovered at all. She seems to be getting worse. Moreover, her magic power is getting weaker and weaker, and she looks like she will disappear at any time. Flandra frowned slightly and said worriedly. After all, Saber was a big help to them now, so it was a pity to disappear like this. I understand. You go and rest first, Fran. I think I probably understand what to do. Well, mister, you should also pay attention to rest. Fran, who was nocturnal in nature, nodded obediently, and immediately walked to her own room to rest. On the other hand, Yayu came to the room where Saber was. The reason why Saber's injuries will not recover but are getting worse is very simple. That is because she betrayed her original master Emi Yakiritsugu, violated the agreement between servant and master, and lost the source of supply of magic power. That's all. After losing their master, all servants except Archer, who has the attribute of acting alone, cannot exist in the world for too long. It is quite difficult for Saber to survive for such a long time after such a fierce battle. But now it seems that she has reached her limit. It is very simple to want Saber to stay, that is, yeah, you can just sign a new contract with her. This is not a troublesome thing. As long as you have the command seal, you have the right to sign a contract with the servant. As long as both parties agree, the contract can be signed smoothly. I hope you can lend me your power, Saber. Yeah, you said this and gently held Saber's palm, and soon the scarlet mark on the back of his hand flashed with a strange light. The moment the contract was signed, a huge force poured into Saber's body, completely healing her injuries in a matter of seconds. Healing a seriously injured servant in an instant is the powerful power of the Holy Grail and the command spell. After all the scars on her body disappeared, Saber slowly opened her eyes. Although she was in a coma, she knew everything Yayu had done. Otherwise, she would not be able to deal with Yayu while he was in a coma. The contract responded. For being able to become Yayu's servant, all the girl had in her heart was joy. She was supposed to be his servant, and now she finally returned to him. At this point, the contract is established, my sword is with you, and your destiny is with me. With emotions that she didn't know how to describe, Saber said with tears of joy. The girl struggled to sit up on the bed, and the quilt covering her slowly slid down. Yayu suddenly turned his head with an embarrassed look. The reason was simple. The girl's body was completely naked under the quilt, without any covering. It seems that when Flandre put the girl to bed last night, she saw that she was in tatters and covered in blood, so she took off her clothes, right? This girl, even if you took off your clothes, you took them off a little too thoroughly. Yayu was dumbfounded and didn't know what to say, and Saber also noticed this embarrassing situation. However, unlike the reaction of ordinary girls who shyly scream and hide, Saber doesn't seem to care at all about showing her body to Yayu for appreciation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Shang. Chapter 159. Why are you turning away? It's the lady who needs to be shy in this situation, right? Saber said this, making Yayu slightly dumbfounded. The shy one should be a lady, but I don't see that you are shy at all. With this thought in his mind, Yayu turned around. Since the other party didn't care about showing his body in front of him, there was no need for him to avoid suspicion. Yayu himself is not the kind of man with a coy personality. He does not have any evil thoughts about seeing Saber's naked body, nor does he feel the slightest sense of guilt. The general feeling is that I saw it like this. I have to say that even though she is married and has children, Yayu's emotional intelligence has not improved much yet. As for Saber, she disguised herself as a man and ruled Britain for many years as a king. She even had a wife as a disguise to hide her from others. It is even more impossible to have such a thing as emotional intelligence. In fact, this girl who became a king at the age of 16 didn't even know what the relationship between men and women represented. Of course, as a woman who has a man looking at her body like this, she still feels shy, but because of the emotions in her heart, Saber's shyness has eased a lot. This is the person I like, and I have decided to boldly release my emotions. I will no longer be a king or a Saber, but just love and laugh as a girl named Artoria. Although the relationship with the other party is not yet a lover, Saber will still treat herself as a lover. I remember that Guinevere seemed to have said something like this before, something that couples should do. Although Saber is a woman, even if she married Guinevere, it was just to hide her from others, but in order to act more forcefully, the two of them naturally slept in the same bed, so Saber also met Guinevere. Nudity. and for some unknown reason, Guinevere also taught Saber a little bit of knowledge in this area. I can't help but do something. But it seems that Yayu is not excited at all. Why is this? Saber is a little confused. Could it be that she is not charming enough? The girl thought so and couldn't help but lower her head and look at her body. Compared with Guinevere, she indeed lacked a lot of feminine charm. Because she is a king and has to fight all year round, Saber's personality and behavior are very close to those of men. By the way, if you do it like this. Recalling what Guinevere once taught her, Saber slowly pressed her naked body towards Yayu, and immediately the girl was lying in his arms when the other party was extremely surprised. Saber, what are you doing? Is it because I'm not charming enough? Guinevere once said that no one can remain calm in front of a naked woman. Why are you still so indifferent when you see my body? The girl lying in Yayu's arms said this with some resentment, with a hint of coquettishness. As she said, she was no longer a king, just a girl who wanted to act coquettishly to her beloved. Emotions are such a wonderful thing. The girl who didn't understand what the emotions in her heart represented at the beginning is now feeling more and more intense after getting closer to Yayu. She has always maintained the appearance of a perfect king in front of her people, and a majestic monarch in front of her knights. For the first time, Saber approached and felt a man in the manner of a girl. This wonderful emotion made her deeply intoxicated and unable to extricate herself. Can you feel it? My presence, my mind, I am here. There were faint ripples in Yayu's heart, feeling the wonderful touch in his palm, and his mouth became dry. He is a normal male and naturally has normal desires. You're very charming, Saber. Yayu said this with a somewhat bitter smile. Perhaps I have never been an emotionally dedicated guy, but unfortunately I am really not in the mood right now. My wife is in a coma and her life or death is still uncertain. I really. When Yayu said this, Saber was slightly startled, and then showed a somewhat apologetic look. Sorry, I don't know this. I don't just want it, I just don't know how to express it. Saber said this in a panic. Looking at the girl's cute posture, Yayu smiled softly. He lowered his head and kissed the girl's soft lips gently. I understand, I can feel your thoughts, but at least I can't accept it yet. Saber, who was kissed suddenly, finally showed a shy and cute expression, lowered her head and shrank her body and hid in Yayu's arms. Men can be passionate, but at least they can't be overly sentimental. If you want to be my woman, at least let Ellie nod her head first. Well, there's her too. The last sentence was said very quietly, because Yayu felt that there might be no possibility of returning to Orario. If he gets the Holy Grail, he will definitely make a wish to save Ellie instead of returning to his own world. I'm sorry, Riveria, maybe, there is no chance to see you again, right? Yayu was thinking absent-mindedly, while Saber on the other side slowly spoke. Your wife, let me go and see what's going on. Maybe I can find the reason. Saber said this, and Yayu's eyes suddenly lit up. It is true that I am only familiar with the power system of this world, but I don't know much about it. If it were Saber, I might be able to see something. Great Saber, let's go. Wait a minute, stop calling me Saber. Saber said this, with a coquettish look on her face. She stretched out a finger and gently touched Yayu's lips. Call me Arturia, that's my name. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 160. After Arturia got dressed, the two of them went to the chapel where Irisveil was placed. The girl lying under the cross statue seemed to be sleeping quietly. Looking at his wife Yayu lying there with a gentle look on his face, he gently leaned over and held the girl's hand. There was a look of envy on Saber's face, but there was no trace of jealousy at all. She moved closer and carefully observed Irisveil's body. Soon, she discovered the key to the problem and frowned slightly. How about it, can you see what the problem is? All I can see is magic power. Huge magic power is flowing through Irisveel's body, and these magic powers give me a very familiar feeling. Arturia's face looked a little uncomfortable as she said this. This was indeed a very familiar magic power. It was the magic power of an opponent she had fought before. Rider, Lancer, and the magic power mixed with the magic power of several other servants. Why is this happening? Irisveel's body is like a container that carries the servant's power and soul. Listening to what Saber said, Yayu's face became a little ugly. Combined with what Irisveel often said to him in the past, he seemed to have vaguely understood something. The maker of the Holy Grail is Einsborn, and in order to carry the power of the Great Holy Grail, there is a small Holy Grail, and this small Holy Grail has always been kept by the Einsborn family. Yayu, do you mean? That's right, if nothing else happens, Einsborn's little Holy Grail is in Irisveel's body. Yayu said this and clenched his fists. No wonder as the Holy Grail war got closer, Irisveel's state became more and more weird. It turned out that she had already known her ending and had prepared to die in advance. Preparation. Too cunning, Ellie, what will I do if you die, what will Ilya do? Do you think I will be the kind of bastard who doesn't care whether you live or die, and will make a wish to return to my own world after getting the Holy Grail? Yayu said heartbrokenly as he hugged his wife's body tightly. Don't worry, I won't let you die, absolutely not. I will get the Holy Grail, and then use the omnipotent wishing machine to revive you, absolutely. Holding his wife's weak body tenderly, Yayu made such an oath. Saber, who was standing aside and watching silently, showed a gentle and envious smile. It's great, Ellie, to have a husband who loves you like this. I don't know when I will be able to have the same status in his heart. I really envy you. When Irisveel opened her eyes again, the first thing that caught her eye was the light of the setting sun that dyed the lighting windows of the underground warehouse crimson. Because he lost consciousness, it was as if the whole day had disappeared, and he had been falling into a deep sleep. Now the body that is gradually collapsing is not so much sleeping as it is entering a state of suspended animation. A comforting warm feeling came from the palm of his hand, and beside him was Yayu. Yayu. Irisveel called softly, and Yayu, like a hound who heard the dog whistle, immediately turned his attention to Irisveel. What time is it now? It's almost dark, Aili, Yayu replied gently. Really, how long have I been in a coma? Irisveel said, her eyes looked very hollow and lifeless. This hollow and lifeless look made Yayu feel extremely heartbroken. It's a pity that he can't do anything. All he can do is sit here and hold her hand to accompany his wife. You were in a coma for a whole day, and now you finally woke up. As Yayu said this, he stretched out his hand to touch Irisveel's face. The girl's face was frighteningly cold and devoid of any warmth. Yayu's palms were trembling as he stroked her again and again, his movements as gentle as holding fragile porcelain. Why are you crying? This is not like you, Yayu. My husband should be a man who remains extremely calm and wise no matter where he is. It's nothing, it's just that the wind and sand confused my eyes. Yayu said this with some embarrassment. He turned his head and wiped the corners of his eyes. Hey, don't be sad anymore. This ending has been doomed a long time ago. Yeah, you should also know it. I am the carrier of the little Holy Grail. When the time is right, I will summon the Holy Grail. In this way, yeah, you can realize your wish. Don't worry, I won't let you die, absolutely not. Listening to Irisveel's heart-wrenching speeches, Yayu was trembling. He couldn't even realize the idea of hugging her tightly, because Irisveel was too weak, so weak that she seemed to use force casually. It will look like it will die. There is no need to be sad, and there is no need to blame yourself. You are a very good husband. With my existence, it is really a great honor to be your wife. Thank you very much, but it's enough. It's enough for a person like me to receive such love. As Iris Veal said this, she closed her eyes again and fell asleep because she was too weak, while Yayu just held the girl's hand gently, with a bitter smile on his face. I am the one who should be sorry. A man like me is extremely lucky to be able to marry a woman like you. After placing a gentle kiss on Iris Veal's face, Yayu flattened the girl's body again, and immediately stood up. Flandra and Artoria stood outside the door, staring at Yayu with some worry. I'm fine, nothing happened at all. Showing a faint smile to the two girls, Yayu straightened up and stared at the gradually dimming world outside the window in a daze. Get ready to go. It's time for this war to come to an end. As Yayu said this, he lowered his head and looked at the scarlet mark engraved on his arm. The 4 command spells were shining brightly under the dim sunlight, emitting an ominous light. You must also be impatient to wait, Emi Yakiritsugu, and the hero King Gilgamesh.